Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about inflation. We're going to be learning what inflation is, how it's caused, and how it's measured in economics. So, basically, inflation, what we know it as, is when the cost of living goes up, when things get expensive. If a Big Mac costed $2 in 1985, then today, in 2026, the same Big Mac costs $7. That's because the money loses its purchasing power over time. And this happens because of a lot of reasons. Inflation is caused by a collection of multiple factors, which we'll talk about later. But first, let's discuss how inflation is measured. In economics, inflation is measured using CPI. And it's a little complicated, but we can take a look at it using an example. There's 2 years that we take into consideration when calculating the CPI. Year one, which is the base year, and year two, which we'll be using for comparison. So let's say in year one, 10 pies were sold for a total of $40. Now to calculate the CPI of that year, we would divide 40 by itself, which is the amount that it was sold for in the base year, multiplied by 100%, which gives us 100. And the CPI of the base year is always 100, no matter the cost. Now let's say the same amount of pies were sold for $50 in year two. So what we'll do is divide 50 by 40, which is the amount it was sold for in year one, multiply by 100%, which gives us 125. Now, to calculate the inflation rate for both years, we subtract both years' CPI from each other. We subtract 125 minus 100, which gives us 25, which is the percentage by which the costs increased in year two. The inflation rate was 25%, and that's how CPI is used in calculating inflation rates. This website here talks about the effect of the COVID-19 lockdowns on the Canadian economy and how inflation just boosted prices up. And basically, what it's talking about is that during the lockdown, demand shifted from services to goods. People needed just the basic necessities, which were available at the time. The problem is that the people that were supplying these necessities weren't able to keep up with the high demand because the raw materials that they needed to manufacture this stuff was not as available as it was before the lockdown. The companies which had laid off a lot of employees struggled to hire and train new staff to meet the new demand, because now that the lockdown was over, people were demanding a lot of stuff that they weren't previously. And the businesses which had laid off their employees weren't able to keep up with this demand, and they raised their prices even more than before.